Thank you all for coming out today. In 1957, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote about the power of nonviolence and standing up to the rage and intolerance that prevailed during that challenging time in our nation's history. Nonviolence, in his words, was not a method of cowardice, passiveness, or complacency, but rather a type of spiritual strength against hate. This afternoon, as we honor Dr. King and his teachings about nonviolence, we stop to reflect on the loss that violence inflicted on our friends and neighbors in Arizona, especially upon the friends and families of Federal Judge John Roll, Congressional Staffer Gabe Zimmerman, 9-year-old Christina Taylor Green, wife of 55 years Dorothy Morris, grandmother Phyllis Schneck, and avid church volunteer Dorwin Stoddard. As the parents of 2 young boys and as friends of Representative Gabrielle Giffords, this senseless violence hit close to home for my wife Julie and me. My hope is that we can collectively transcend this moment with a more peaceful and respectful way forward. Saturday's massacre devastated many innocent lives, and it was an attack on our nation's democratic process. That people across this nation would have to worry about violence as part of engaging in our sacred democratic process is unthinkable. We must honor the legacy of Saturday's victims by engaging in a vigorous debate without compromising civility and respect for one another's dignity. Differences will never be abolished, nor should they. They're part of what makes our American democracy great. But the novel idea of habitual nonviolence that Dr. King spoke of seeks to overcome the cycle of violence that controls, that intimidates, that deprives others of their rights, and that disheartens the courageous from participating in our democracy. Instead, like Dr. King, we continue to believe in something more powerful in the heart of each American, a core respect for one another's human dignity. More powerful than the shock and heartbreak of these events is our response and our collective compassion for the victims. It's visible in our response to this tragedy, and I would venture to say that in times like this, Americans' hearts are not hardened, but rather awakened and moved by the suffering that was caused by the violence in Tucson. We saw it in our nation's response to Oklahoma City in 1995. We saw it in our country's response on 9/11. And we saw it in this very city when we united around those impacted by the tragic shooting at MCOR just last July. And we see it now in how our nation unites for the people of Tucson. These senseless tragedies are devastating and painful, but they also reveal something more powerful in each of us that unites the people of our nation. Dr. King believed that in that power of nonviolence and called on us to strive to defend the frailty of human lives. He believed in the power of nonviolence to reinforce the dignity of one another and to strengthen our nation's democracy. He believed that through the practice of nonviolence in our words, in our actions, and in our hearts, that we could move our nation, quote, from the bleak and desolate midnight of man's inhumanity to man, to the bright and glittering daybreak of freedom and justice. Today, let us honor Dr. King's dream. Let us honor the victims and heroes of Tucson. And let us strive to rekindle that which unites us as a nation. Thank you. God bless.